How can we get more customers? What can we do to attract more to the business? Well, one of the things that we can do is reduce our prices. How do we reduce our prices? Well, as we saw earlier on, that lower infrastructure cost. We get lower costs because of our economies of scale. Our economies of scale simply means that we are running at a level of efficiency, a level of scale that means our cost base is lower. That gives us a better price, that attracts more customers. Because we're getting more customers and more usage of AWS, that means we need to get more infrastructure to support those customers, which means our economies of scale get better, which means our cost base gets better, which means we can reduce our prices. That means we can attract more customers. And the way we can attract more customers is by growing our global footprint, more regions. We can add new services. We can add new features to existing services. We are growing out the global capability for our customers to use and to benefit from. And because we do that, our business can grow. Because our business can grow, we can lower our costs, we can drive in efficiencies, we can pass that on to our customers, our business can grow. Our customers simply benefit from lower prices by being a customer of ours. As we think about the economics and trying to put this together as an example, let's talk about how all we can bring this together. Here we have a very simple example, a very simple diagram of over time, what is our infrastructure cost based upon the predicted, keyword there, peak demand. Staggeringly simple example here. As things go on, we get more demand, our costs increase as a result. Okay. Well, what we see here, before we do absolutely anything, we've got that large capital expenditure buying enough resources so that we can do anything. So that even if we're just starting out in a business, we've got this high upfront cost. And that would last us for a while, but it will get to the point where we don't have enough capacity and we've got to spend yet more money. And that will last us for a while, and this cycle repeats. And businesses have been doing this for years. What we find, though, is whilst that dotted orange line of predicted demand is nice, the real world is a little more messy than that. Because at times that predicted demand could be, the actual demand could be higher. It could be lower. Instead of it being a nice simple linear graph here, we might find that we've got something and actually, wow, this business is taking off. This is fabulous. What a great thing. But what we also find with that is that here we've got this relative dip in demand because things change over time. So we've got this here, this opportunity cost, that money that has gone out of the business to buy this large capital expense is gone. We've now got that equipment sat there not being used efficiently. What we've got here is the other side of that problem, is that we're unable to either serve or to serve with good enough performance our customers because our demand has grown significantly. That's great from a business perspective, but the IT and technology behind it couldn't keep up. So we end up here unable to serve our customers. What we want to be able to do is to much more align the resources that we have running to the demand. Align what we are actually provisioned out there doing things over time as our business demand changes. And that could be minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year. Because this is a very simple graph. In reality, the graphs are a lot more interesting than that, sort of a lot more noisy. So that we don't get to a point we can't serve our customers because we don't have the resources. And we don't get to the point we've got this significant opportunity cost. There will always be some gap between what our actual demand is and what we provisioned, and that's a good thing. It means there's a little bit of headroom. It means that if we get this sudden spike, we've got the buffer. But there's an art to making sure that those lines are aligned. And there's an art and a science to thinking about the size of the buffer. There's an art and a science and some engineering that we can bring to our customers in terms of giving them the capabilities to change this yellow line really quickly in response to a change to this red line, this actual demand, and that is something that as a partner we can really help our customers with, the art, the science, and the engineering of all of this, bringing it together against all of 4 pillars of the Cloud Value Framework and more. We're going to talk to that and more when we come back from a break. We've been going for just over an hour at this point. I like to put breaks in about every 60 to 90 minutes, ideally closer to the 60. That was an hour, so we will take our first break. We're going to take a 15-minute break, a 5-minute break. Actually, yeah, a 15-minute break. And then we will come back and continue with where we are. So I'm going to put up a holding slide to say when we shall return, and I will see you all in a few minutes' time with, hopefully for everybody, a fresh cup of coffee. So please enjoy a few minutes away from the screen. I'll see you all in 15 minutes. Cheers, folks. Hey, folks, welcome back. Little break there just to freshen us all up. And let's come back into it. Let me change what you can see. Before we get started into picking up the module again, something I always like to ask, something I love finding out, is where are we all in the world? With virtual training, we can and quite often are anywhere in the world. Where's home? I don't want your home address, just which part of the world is home for you? I'm here in the UK. I used to live in London. I don't anymore, thankfully. I moved out of London last year, and I now live just over an hour west of London, very green, pretty part of the UK called the Cotswolds, for those of you who happen to know the UK. Just wondering, where is home for this particular group? Where are we all in the world? Looking in chat, Copenhagen, Denmark. We've got Germany. Lovely. Where else are we all? India, Prague, Joburg. More from India. Fabulous. Scotland. Wonderful, wonderful. Anywhere else? It's always one of those things. It's kind of Malaysia. Oh wow, cool. Malaysia, wonderful. Because I was going to say, it's like, where are we all from? It's always that kind of one of those nice things about finding with training like this is so many different parts of the world come together. Istanbul. Oh, I've not been there for years. I've not been I've not been to there for many years. Beautiful city. Kent, I used to live on the borders, so I know it well. India again, fabulous. Not just in Kent, it's one of those things. I used to live on the London-Kent border, and it's just kind of like, oh yeah, Kent. Welcome everybody. It is one of those things that there are not a lot of positives about the state of the world for the last, what feels like forever. It still feels like March 2020 right now. The calendar tells me it's October 2021, but it might be lying to me. For me, one of those little rays of sunshine in all of this is that we get so many people together from different parts of the world, that we get to come and take classes to you from Copenhagen and Germany and India and Prague and Joburg and Scotland and Malaysia and Istanbul and Kent. And it's just, we get to come out to so many more people. We get so many more different parts of the world in and together. And I just love it. It really is just a delight when things like this happen. So I always ask that question, and it always puts a smile on my face. Thank you for that. We are going to continue with this module, which is where we're going to start to talk about some of the migration challenges that our customers may be thinking about, how you as a partner can help with that. We'll get through the rest of this module. We'll probably start and maybe even do the next module. We'll see just how timing is going in terms of breaks and lunch. And then that is the flow for the next couple of hours. Maybe a little break, maybe straight through to lunch. We'll see how the modules are going. We'll see how the flow is. We'll see about the questions. So let's talk about migration challenges for our customers and some of the concerns they may have and how you can help our customers better understand them. The four we're talking to is migration related costs, potentially obviously sunk costs, IT readiness, and IT organizations. So let's start to take a look at this. Fundamentally, there is going to be a cost to change. There are migration costs. That's the cost of the change. That's the cost of maybe dual running for a period of time. That's the cost of maybe you as a partner making those changes. It is a cost to maybe changing people, process, not changing people, but training and the such like, changes to people, process, technology, and reporting. All of those have a time element and as such a cost element. One of the things that we can do as a partner is to help in helping our customers is to get really good at doing migrations. As we help our customers with migrations, we can help reduce the amount of time, of effort, of cost involved, thus making it a lower cost of change for our customers. That's ultimately a good thing. We can help by thinking about sunken costs. And this is where we, as much as we talk about cloud here, this is in a part talking about financial management overall, accounting in a way, which is the assets that the customer already has. So that could be, the servers, the storage, the networking equipment, the physical data center buildings. They've purchased them, or they are leasing those, depending upon the purchase model. And depending upon where we are within that customer, there may be some value left on them in terms of the depreciation value from an accountancy perspective. It might be that they are, in some places, relatively new bits of equipment and it's earlier on, it's not yet been close enough to the refresh cycle. And that's a real thing. But what we need to do here is work with that customer, not to look at the headline cost of that infrastructure. We bought, 10 servers, each server was $1, therefore it's got a $10 value. Simple, silly numbers. Well, we bought 10 servers 2 years ago. The depreciated value of these, instead of being $1, is, let's say, 50 cents, or it's 40 cents, whatever that customer's depreciation is. And that's part of what we need to be thinking about. What is the actual value of that on the books? Because that's not likely to be, in many cases, the headline figure. The other thing that we want to be considering is what are the potential recoveries from those assets in terms of value that we can bring into the business. Can we simply sell it and make some money back? We'll sell those older servers of ours and we will make back X money. That helps to balance off any residuals of the value in terms of the depreciation on the books. Can we sell off the data center? Can we lease that data center space to somebody else and make some, either bring money into the business? And all of these are analytical elements that we're coming back to this true total cost. Because what we're thinking about here for that sunk infrastructure cost, the headline might be, we spent, X dollars on servers. Well, yes, But what's the actual value to the business? Where are you in your depreciation cycle? What's the recovery costs? What's the actual usage? And that's where we're getting to this cloud value framework. That's where we're doing this true total cost analysis. We don't need to be penny perfect here, roughly right, not not perfectly incorrect. But we can think about the return into the business from any infrastructure. And this is what we're looking at. We're looking at a staggeringly simple equation. We're looking at this staggeringly simple equation of what are our customers' savings as the numerator, and our denominator are the sunk costs and the migration costs. But we've just said that those sunk costs are probably not the headline figure because of things like accounting depreciation, things like recovery capability. And that those migration costs, as a partner, one of the things that you can do is help reduce those costs as time, as effort, as cash. That might be that, you selling services to a potential customer is actually going to reduce their migration costs because you're going to make it so much faster. They're going to get to savings more quickly. You can help them get that return on investment. We can look at the cost savings side of this calculation. And if we think back to that Live Nation example, 18% upfront, lovely. And another 40% after in terms of driving out costs, driving in efficiencies. That changes this. Well, the equation is the same, but that's changing the values. That's improving this return on investment. So one of the things to be mindful of here is that when we're thinking about the costs, is that we want to be thinking about the true costs, not necessarily the headline cost or the perceived cost. We want to be thinking about the true values of all of the items, including things like the accountancy value and the recovery value. What can we help our customers with in terms of recovering value by selling those assets, for example? One of the other issues here relating to costs, relating to some of the migration, is this change to an OPEX model, the change to using an operational expenditure model as compared to something which is a capital expenditure. For years, IT equipment has been bought as a capital expense. We buy the equipment. From a business perspective, we know how to manage that. We know how to account for it from an accounting, from a tax. All of that is pretty well understood. Well, we're changing to this operational model. That might be changing our customers' accountancy in terms of things like tax, in terms of the value of a dollar at CapEx versus the value of a dollar at OPEX. We, as AWS, cannot and will not provide tax advice. We are not tax lawyers. Unless you are a tax professional, you cannot and should not provide tax advice. That's what tax lawyers and that's what accountants are for. But we can help our customers by saying, here is a thing. Here is something that you may need to consider. We can help bridge gaps between parts of the business that may not traditionally talk as well, such as talking with the accountancy department and the financial department and helping them understand the AWS billing models, such as on-demand and reserved and savings plans, so that they can say, actually, if we do it this particular way, then that has this implications to us from a total cost perspective, from a total business perspective, and this is an optimization we're looking for, such as actually we want more reserved instances because that has this impact to us from an accountancy basis, and that's how it has long-term has this value to us. We're bridging the gap between the technology, the cost of that technology, and some of the pure financial management. That's part of the cloud value framework here, folks. And we're not accountants, we're not tax lawyers, but we need to be able to bridge all of these experts together within the company so that we can help them manage that. That's an important part of the work that we can do as a partner. Another important part of the work that we do as a partner is helping our customers be ready, more ready, feel more ready in terms of what I'm calling cloud readiness. And that itself comes into two factors. The obvious one, the bottom bit there, is applications. Does what we're looking at work on the cloud? Will this migrate? Can we build this idea of ours in the cloud? And the answer to that in an awful lot of cases is going to be yes. Should we migrate this? Now that's a little bit more interesting, which is we get into questions such as, well, what does that application do? In a lot of cases, it will be very happy in the cloud. In some cases, that application, that data processing may need to be physically in a particular location. The classic example of this is to do with maybe control systems in a factory. You've got big, heavy, maybe dangerous machinery doing things, and we want the compute that controls and manages all of that physically and logically as close to it as possible from, if nothing else, a latency perspective. It's a physics thing. Maybe we have application interdependencies. Some applications might be completely standalone, many will not. They'll have interdependencies, and that might influence what we migrate and when, in what order. That would influence some of the technology choices, some of the ordering choices that we make in terms of which order of migration, which order of build out. And all of these are things that as a partner we can help our customers understand, because it might be that they've got this suite of applications and in a data center where, oh yeah, okay, it's a couple of switch hops away, it's pretty well understood. There's less questions, or there are fewer questions, because it hasn't changed a lot. As a partner, what we can do here is help our customers understand their environment better. They'll have hopefully some understanding of it, but we can help highlight more parts of it. We can look at the dependencies and interdependencies. We can look at some of the performance characteristics, both from a readiness, yes, we can do it point of view, and from a cost perspective. How do we maybe right size the instances, which again we'll be talking about as we go through. The other part to this is really human. A skills is part of it. A skills thing is part of it. Skills and experience. Do the staff of that particular customer have the skills and experience to, it says, transition to the cloud? Let's think about that. Could be the design and build out maybe something like a landing zone, to do the migration work, to operate the environment once things have been migrated, to operate, to build and operate net new capability, to integrate all of that into maybe some on-prem as a part of a hybrid, or to keep it in a hybrid state as we're going through that migration. Part of what you as a partner bring to our customers here is skills and experience. The ability to help accelerate our customers' migration by bringing to them your knowledge, your experience, your intellectual property, your skilled and experienced engineers, your bits of code that you've written, whole applications that you have written. Maybe that's growing out into a whole new line of business for you. It's things that you can do to help that organization in terms of skills and experience, to help that organization from an IT department maybe feel less threatened, because that's a really human factor here. The perception of loss of control, the perception of, well, if we go to the cloud, do I still have a job? Am I going to be made redundant? I can put myself in those shoes and go, I understand why somebody might be worried about that. That worry of having a job still. That perception of, well, if we migrate to the cloud, how do I get the skills I need? How do I get the training that I need? How do I make sure that I'm still relevant here and keep a job and have a good job and get paid? And as a partner, one of the things that we can do is make sure that those most important assets inside that organization are getting what they need. And that's the skilled staff. That's getting them training. That can be ad hoc training that maybe you deliver. It can be formal training such as, well, classes like this. So that they've got the knowledge and the skills. They don't feel threatened. They see this as what I genuinely think it is, which is an opportunity, as compared to something which is something that should be worried about. But I like, in a strange way, I quite like change. There's part of me that doesn't, like most humans, don't like change, and there's part of me that thrives off it. The joys of humans. Part of that, as we extend it out, is we're going to be thinking about that entrenched IT department. We run the IT. We know what's best. Or this is how we've always done it, which is some of the scariest words I know. Oh, we've always done it this way. Okay, maybe when you first started doing it, that was genuinely a really good way of doing something. Maybe it was done with the best of intentions and it genuinely was a good way of doing something. Maybe that has changed and you have not. Maybe we need to make sure that we've got an IT department that is best serving the business, not the business serving the IT department. Because as IT professionals, ours is a job of service in terms of serving the needs of our stakeholders. And IT is one of those. It might be quite a big stakeholder, certainly for things like a technical migration or building out new technical capabilities. They are a significant stakeholder, but they are one significant stakeholder. And there are many other factors to be considered here. And part of the work that we have to do in terms of being a partner, thinking about the total cloud value framework, thinking about cloud economics, is helping bridge these conversations, helping make sure that, yes, IT is at the table, but it is part of the story. The IT may have various different flavors. So infrastructure, operations, IT security may come from a governance and risk perspective. It is likely to have engagement with things like the senior business leadership, the likes of the CIO, the CFO, maybe the CEO. Because from a business perspective, they may be looking at some of these technical changes going, we can't get this fast enough, more faster now. I've worked with a customer like that. I worked on a project where if you talked to the business, they were really keen, almost desperate for some of the capabilities that cloud could bring them in terms of what it would mean to their business. It wasn't cloud because it's cool, or it was even in terms of the lower costs. It was in terms of what it could do for them in terms of things like speed of data analytics. So maybe like the Aon example that we saw, something that went from 10 days to 10 minutes, how quickly they could process more data. They could process more data. They could do it more quickly. They could get the value out of that data more quickly and then take action on it more quickly. And as a business, that would help them to grow, to increase their profits, to ultimately be more successful as a business. None of that was to do with an IT department. All of that was as a conversation, all of that was about a business change. So part of what we're thinking here is about saying, actually, okay, even if we spend a bit more over here, are we saving so much more over somewhere else that the total cost is actually lower? Because one element of our total cost might be a little higher, but overall our costs are lower, and overall we're getting all these other benefits, the most compelling benefits, as we've been talking about, that will help our business overall. That's where there's a lot of soft skills to be thought about and to be used here in terms of excuse me, in terms of the stakeholder management, because this is not just an IT conversation. There are IT elements to it, such as the perceived IT costs. Here are some pretty good examples, I think, of the perceived costs of running technology: the servers, the software, the licensing, the backups, storage, and some networking to glue all of that together, and the administration thereof. Pretty solid start. But it's not the actual costs. Some of those are actual costs, but all of that kit needs to live somewhere, and that itself has a cost, the cost of the facilities. That might be a data center or data centers, plural, the customer owns or is renting and leasing, or they've got some form of co-location, and all of that comes with cost of physical space, the power, the cooling, and all of that has a cost in itself. So that's the cost of the power, yes, but the cost of having resilient power, of maintaining that, of keeping it up to date, of cooling, of resilient cooling, of maintaining that, of fixing that when it breaks. Because if you don't, your stuff is likely to break because your data center got too hot. It's a fun and exciting place to be. Don't do that. Anybody who's ever been in a hot data center knows you walk into a hot data center and go, "Oh no!" It's one of those things. If you've never done it, you don't know. But if you've ever walked into a data center where the cooling has gone wrong, and you've walked in and gone, "Oh dear," you know you're going to be having a fairly exciting day. And all of that has a cost. All of the cost of managing all of that has a cost. So the cost of running the facilities, of managing all of that, of testing all of that, of testing things like your power failover. Oh, we're going to simulate the loss of mains power so that we fall over to the uninterruptible power supply, and that we're then going to kick in the diesel generators, and that will kick in until the mains return, and then we'll fall back, and blah, blah, blah. That takes time and effort and energy and maintenance, and then you'll find actually that failover didn't work quite as the way we hoped, and oh, maybe we now have some problems. And there's a cost to managing all of that, and there's a cost to the cost, as in there's a cost to having money. So part of what we're thinking about here is, when we're thinking about that cost analytics, that actual cost, the cost savings analysis, part of that is thinking about the true actual costs, where that is not just saying, oh, we've got 10 servers, they're $1 each, that's $10. That's not the actual cost. There is so much more to it that we want to be thinking about. So much so we've got some ideas of what works and what does not work. And again, these are things to make you more successful in helping our customers. About having the right stakeholders at the table, where IT is one of them, but not all of them. The business leaders, the financial leaders, yes, IT, but maybe different aspects of IT. The infrastructure people have one view of the world, maybe the DevOps or the operations folks have a different view of the world, and all of that needs to come together collaboratively. This is something, and I can't stress this enough, that we don't do to a customer. This is a collaborative exercise that we work with that customer. We are guiding with that customer to get the data that we need. So this is part of them generating. We are leading this customer so that as we collaboratively work together, we get accurate, meaningful data. That data is good enough, roughly right, not precisely wrong. That things like the realistic usage percentages, because if we say, oh, we've got 100 servers, and it's they're all quad core, this much memory, that much, it's like, okay, how much do you use them? Oh, all the time. Okay, they're on all of the time, burning electricity, costing you money. What's the actual utilization of those servers as measured over a useful amount of time? So over an hour, over a day, over a week, over a month, so that we can actually look at what's the realistic usage percentages, so that when we model out what it would look like in AWS, we're not saying on-prem that we've got 100 servers, they're all quad core, they've all got this much memory, so we need exactly that in AWS. That's not what we're doing here. We're looking at the same total capabilities. And one of the things that we might find is by simply moving on to more modern hardware, we need less of it because it's simply more powerful. Or it might be that we've actually scaled in an on-premise world for a peak event that only happens for a week a year that we can manage in a different way in the cloud, or that we've scaled the best we could in an on-premise environment going, well, we'll get all of this because in case we need it, but it turns out we didn't. So we've had a lot of wasted capacity. So we can get better sizing in AWS that has a lower cost. And also that there is a cost and a value to the business side. That staff productivity has a cost and a value. The example from, Adroll. The example from Adroll. They saved 20 engineers worth of hiring, and that was saving them millions of dollars. That staff productivity has a bottom line impact. That Aon example about speed of data processing has a business impact. They can more quickly analyze the data. They can, as such, do more, better, richer analytics in the same elapsed time. Maybe that's helping them better manage their business risk, their capital risk, their cash risk. And from anybody who's worked in financial services, that's a thing. That has a real business value, and we can assign a value to that and use that as a part of our total value, our true value in analytics. And that's where we're getting into some things we know that don't work, because yes, money talks. Without question, your conversation with a customer may well start about money, but we don't want to start with pricing and discounts. We're looking at total cost, because that headline cost of, well, it costs me $1 here and it costs me X dollars there, that's a headline value. That's not the true total cost. Because if you said, well, okay, I've got 10 servers here, I've got 10 servers there. Well, okay, that's 10 servers plus space, plus power, plus cooling, plus the management of all of that, plus, as compared to 10 instances and some management costs around it, which we can talk about and model as well. So yes, we're going to include costs and pricing in what we're doing, but it's not a focal point. It is about making sure that we've got true comparison of what that customer needs, not a duplication of what they have. So, for example, those underutilized servers, those servers that are scaled out for the peak business week or two that they have once a year, that the rest of the time they sit there burning electricity, not doing much. What we want to think about is that duplication of capability at equal or better performance, not just saying, I've got 100 servers, all of them are, say, quad core 32 gig of RAM, so I'm going to have 100 instances at quad core 32 gig of RAM. That's not what we're looking at here. We're capturing the true costs, the true utilizations, the actual numbers, not the perceived numbers or the expected numbers or the desired numbers or the numbers that they tell us, oh yes, we get all this utilization. Do you really? Is that actually what you're getting? If it is, awesome. If it isn't, then we can use the real numbers to help. And finally, and as we started on this, yes, money talks. Yes, we're not focusing on pricing and discounts. We're focusing on cost analysis. We're focusing on the whole cloud value framework. But money talks, and as such, we need to make sure that's part of the conversation. So how can we deliver this? How can we actually go and deliver this to and with our customers? I'm just going to leave this up while I take a quick sip of water, and then we will talk through it. Excuse me a second. Okay, sorry about that, folks. As I said, I genuinely love my job, but wow, it's an exercise in keeping my throat warm and wet, or in that case, cold and wet, because that's what cold water. So what we're looking at here is an engagement process. And what we're looking at here, depending upon, a number of things, quite often around data collection, could take somewhere between 1 to 2 months, 4 to 8 weeks, where this is probably one of the biggest variables. So let's talk about each of the steps. Like all good projects, we're going to have a kickoff. We are going to make sure that we have the right people involved, the right stakeholders, that we have the right collective view of what we are all trying to achieve. We all have the same goals in mind, so that when we get to the end of the process, we don't get somebody going, but I thought we were doing that. And that no project has ever worked well if that happens. That's just a project management thing. That we all know the importance of doing this together, collaboratively, and that we get good, true, accurate, meaningful data. Because that's what we're doing here, is we are working with our customer or potential customer to use their data to look at their cost savings, their value. Because there's lots of numbers that we can talk about these people did this and these people did that. What we're doing here is looking at their numbers. And this is an iterative process. That data collection, it says 2 to 4 weeks. It's not that we sit there and just collect data for a period of time. What we are doing is we are collecting data, and we should be constantly reviewing this data, looking at it, reviewing it, thinking about it, testing some of our assumptions. Maybe that is causing us to go back and ask for more data. Hey, we've gone through, we found all this information. As a result of that, hey, we found you another 100 servers you didn't realize you'd got. It happens. We need to go and get some data about that. Or actually, we've got this data and it turns out we thought that 3 weeks of analytics would be enough, but looking at this data, we recommend 5 weeks of data analytics because it looks like it's quite spiky, or there's interesting trends over time that we need to better understand. We're iterating through with the customer, so that customer is actively part of the work that says this is good, meaningful data. And we are going through and saying constantly, is this a good set of data? Do we have enough data, the right data? Have we discovered something that's challenged our assumptions that we need to tweak? Is there something we've discovered that the customer maybe did not know about, and we need to go and find more data? So that we can get to the point we've got this full assessment. We can get to the point we've gathered enough data that we can say we've got enough meaningful data. We've incorporated any new data, we've analyzed it, and we are happy as a team with the result. And that's you as a partner saying, we've done a good job as a partner here. We can stand by this with that customer, so that the customer can be confident that when it comes to that final reporting, that data is their data, that it's meaningful, that it's accurate, and that when we look at those numbers, they can go, yeah, that's right. I was part of making that happen. That when we report that, do that customer report out, there are hopefully no surprises, or few surprises, certainly nothing bad. In terms of the, one of those things of any engagement process where you're doing, the final report, is that final report shouldn't be a surprise to the customer. We should be helping present to them the final set of information so that we can then drive forward and say, okay, let's take action on this. How do we use these real numbers to help you? As a partner, how can we take this and work with you to get this value, to make your business hopefully better, lower costs, more profitable, more agile, more performant, more resilient? There are tools that we'll be talking about to help you in doing this. There's things like the simple calculator. There's a calculator. There is a resource here that I'll be sharing in the follow-up links that I hope everybody here will end up bookmarking, is the Economic Center on our webpage. And that's where you can go to find lots of resources in terms of helping you help our customers in terms of economics. That's what we're doing here. Because using the right information, bringing it together with our customers is part of the cloud value framework. It is part of how you are using economics, how you are using cold, hard numbers to drive data-driven decisions, is a term that we use here in Amazon. It's a data-driven decision. We're doing this because the data has told us this is the right thing to do. Or the data has given us this information, and my expertise, my knowledge, my skills, and my experience are telling me that's where it's going to lead us. But I'm doing it based on real data. So let's do a little bit of a knowledge check, and then we will see how we are doing. Excuse me a second, folks. So very similar to the previous knowledge check, you're welcome to put something in chat if you would like. You can keep it to yourself if you would like, on a bit of paper, whatever works for you. This is so that you can get a feel of, do I have the information I need to, let's be honest here, see that you can pass the accreditation test, I imagine is a goal for, I really hope, all of you. My view on that is, and that you've got the information to go and better help our customers. It's a both, not an exclusive or. So let's take a look at this. Question number 1, fill in the blank. A what analysis calculates the total cost of ownership for running an end-to-end traditional IT environment versus deploying to AWS. A, B, C, or D, fill in the blank. A analysis calculates the total cost of ownership for running an end-to-end traditional IT environment versus deploying on AWS. I can see a few answers in chat. All of them are B, and that's rather nice because that's what we're looking for here. That's some of the key things. This is total cost of ownership end to end. The total actual costs versus AWS using things like actual utilization numbers, actual value of equipment, actual business data, because that's how we make something work for this customer, not just a headline figure that says, oh, you could save this much. It's you can, using your numbers, this is the order of magnitude. So question number 2, which of the following represents the best value of the cost savings analysis for a customer? Which of the following represents the best value of a cost savings analysis for a customer? A, B, C, or D? Lots of people putting in, lots of people saying C. That is correct, which is lovely. And one of the important bits here is equal or improved performance. It's that where we were talking about saying, well, actually on-prem, you've got the 100 servers, the XYZ configuration of this type of utilization. Well, equal or improved performance in AWS, you may need fewer servers or fewer instances, fewer cores, because those cores are simply more powerful. They're much more modern hardware. If you're working with a customer who's been sweating their assets, who've got older equipment, it might be that by jumping several generations in equipment, you just need simply less of it because the new kit is so much more powerful than older kit. Or that by using actual data around utilization, that we can say, well, actually, this is all you really need. Question number 3. This says, select all that apply. Now, in a real exam, we would tell you how many to pick. So I'm going to tell you that we're looking for 3. There are 3 of these 4 answers that are how we as AWS can help our customers lower their costs. Which three are they? A, B, C, D. Lovely, 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 lovely. Can see some answers coming in. Lots of people saying A, B, C. Phew, which is good. Those are the correct answers. That consumption-based model, pay for what you use. Our pricing models, there's not one way of pricing things. We can blend pricing to help and serve our customers, and those prices are consistently being reduced by us. Question number 4. Which of the following is not a migration challenge for customers that we have been discussing? Which of the following is not a migration challenge for customers that we have been discussing? So 4 of these are challenges. We are looking for the one that is not a challenge for the customers that we've been talking about. A, B, C, D, E. Which one is not a migration challenge? Okay. A couple of things coming in, couple of different letters. Okay. So I'm going to bring up the answer. I'm going to talk to it because there's a couple of different views on this one. I would, from what we have been discussing, the one that we have not discussed as a potential challenge for our customers is hesitancy about the pricing model. I'd like to think that we are very open, very transparent about how our pricing works. There's literally a white paper on it. The prices are on the website. We can talk extensively about this. We have talked about the migration related costs, the cost of doing the migration. We've talked about that there could be an organizational change in terms of shifting to that OPEX model because it's quite different from what they've been doing previously. That cloud readiness from a skills perspective, an application perspective, and as a part of that, there could be this entrenched IT organization, people who don't want to move to cloud because of either there may be a perception of skills, perception of risk, perception of, do I still have a job? Are we doing the wrong thing? I'm the IT department, I know what's best. So those are the 4 we did talk about. The one that we have not talked about as a potential challenge for our customers is this pricing model hesitancy. I'd like to think that our customers have a good understanding of that. So how are we doing? Okie dokie. Where are we on time? We've been talking for 45 minutes. Let's take a short break. Let's just take a short break before we get into the next module, because that way it just makes the day a little bit gentler. And there's only so much time that we can focus on anything. So we are at somewhere between 10 past and quarter past. We're going to take another, well, it'll be a 13-minute break just to make the timings work out. We're going to come back at 11:25 UK time, 11:25 UK time. So that's 13-minute break because it's somewhere between 10 and 15. Again, please get your teas, get your coffees, get your waters, get some time away from the screens. I'll put up a holding slide and I'll see you all at 11:25 UK time. See you then, folks. Hey, folks, welcome back. Nice little break there. Just literally, it puts in a break. It helps us get away from the screens, hopefully all freshened up. Teas, coffees, waters, fresh air, whatever it is that works for you. Now, let me change what it is that you can see. There we go. So we are coming straight back into it. We are continuing with our discussions of the cloud value framework. That is not the button I just pushed. Excuse me, 1 second, folks. Let's try that again. That's the button I pushed. So we're still talking cloud economics. We're still talking business value. We're still talking the cloud value framework. We have spent some time looking at that typical focus, the cost savings. We are now thinking about staff productivity. We're thinking about these most compelling benefits. So what we've got here, very simple example. We're thinking about the type of work that our staff do and how that changes over time as that customer matures their usage of AWS. So what the customer is doing, maturity. What we are going to see is as that customer gets more mature in their usage of AWS and their usage of cloud, the type of work that they're doing is changing. They are reducing the amount of tactical, undifferentiated work that is not adding a direct value to their business. Things that need to happen, yes, but things that are undifferentiated, are tactical, are just the run of the mill. What we also see is that as things change over time, because we are doing less tactical work, less undifferentiated work, we can do more strategic differentiated work. We can spend more time, more effort, more energy, more focus, more flow doing what really matters to our business, what will make our business more successful. It's not that we've had to, other things aren't happening. It's that we can spend more of our time doing more work of higher value, that we are still doing everything that we need to do, but our staff can simply do more in the same amount of time. Or one member of staff can simply do more, such as run more VMs per member of staff or more terabytes of storage. Or that our staff are more able to do work because there's been a 43.4% reduction in total incidents, and that's come from an AWS benchmark back in 2018. So that's over a third, nearly a half, not quite, but nearly a half. Just that reduction of number of incidents. How many things have we not done at times because, oh yes, I've got this brilliant plan for the day, and then woof, something knocks that out. That will still occur. Things will still go wrong. Things will still not work the way, things will still happen. But we can reduce the number. We can reduce the severity. We can get more things done because we're not having to firefight as much. That's great from a business point of view. I think that's great from a staffing point of view. Just that ability to really focus on doing something as compared to being constantly interrupted by incidents. And this is going to be true across all of the different aspects that we're thinking about when it comes to staff and staff productivity. We can look at it from many different ways, and we're going to. We can look at how does this affect maybe the infrastructure types, the servers, the networking, the storage. How does this affect those who run applications on top of that? The applications teams, the operations teams. How does it impact facilities? How does it impact security? And how do we put some measures around all of that? Now, get the right slide in front of you. I've got quite a few slides that look a bit like this, looking at some of the benefits that we have. I'm not going to read out every line. You get a copy of the slides. You can read it slowly. I'll have them up so you can talk to them. I'll call out various numbers as we go. Because in some cases, what we're going to see is there is a typical reduction that means, yes, the amount of work that we're going to do, the amount of time that's going to take, the amount of effort that's going to involve has been reduced, such as managing and upgrading software. It will still need to happen. We're still going to think about OSs. We're still going to think about configuration and patching and updates and all of that stuff that we've been part of running IT systems. We may get whole bunches of new things as well, certainly when we start putting in things like serverless. In some cases, what we're going to find is that entire types of work have ceased to need to happen or have been dramatically changed. So all of the work around physical hardware, the provisioning, the decommissioning, the break fix, all of that stuff from a data center perspective might cease to be happening because you may not have a data center, or it may be significantly reduced because the data center footprint and what's inside of it has simply been reduced. Because from an AWS perspective, all that physical hardware that is the cloud, that's our problem to manage. The customer no longer has to do that. The customer no longer has to think about that from a technology, from things like a server perspective, from a networking perspective. My first love from a technology perspective is networking. I'm a frustrated networking nerd that pretends to do other things from time to time. But it takes time, effort, and energy to manage the physical provisioning and reprovisioning, the firmwares, the software, the monitoring of all of it. Anybody who's ever done racking and stacking and then plugging, getting all the Ethernet cables as they should be. All of that in AWS is managed by us. The customer still has networking capabilities, obviously. They can still manage their route tables. They can still choose how things route within their environment. So from a technical basis, they're still in control of their routing. It's just, air quotes, that it's abstracted so that whilst they can still manage all of the routing, they don't have to manage and provision the network infrastructure. They don't have to think about the capacity management of all of that, because that can be taken care of for them by us. They just pick the instance type that gives them the networking performance that they want. Yes, in a hybrid environment, then there will still be some things that we want to be thinking about here, because you've still got equipment. You still have a direct connection and managing all of that. But we can dramatically reduce the amount of time, effort, and energy, and in some cases completely eliminate it. The same for storage. That general purpose maintenance, software management, fixes, reboots, just the day-to-day grind of managing anything, and the day-to-day management of the physicals of storage, of physical disk arrays, of shelves of disks, some of which will go wrong. As our CTO is so fond of saying, everything fails all of the time. Replacing your disks, adding capacity, keeping it powered, keeping it clean, just all of that physical stuff that has to happen. That's ours to manage. From a customer perspective, they still get to choose which type of storage they want, what performance characteristics it has. They can still think about utilization of that and say that, so for example, instead of provisioning a 1 terabyte virtual EBS volume where you're actually only then going to use 100 gigabytes, you provision a 120 gigabyte volume. So you've got a little bit of capacity, but we've reduced our costs. We've made it easier to manage our storage. We've made it easier to manage our applications because we can use the power of automation so that our staff can spend more time doing what they want and to be doing, what we are employing them to do: write code, test that code, think about innovative ways of solving customer problems, of building new and improving capability. What they don't want to be doing, or at least I've never met a developer who enjoys doing it, maybe you have, and I'd love to know the story if you have, of building test environments, of building delivery mechanisms, because that's just undifferentiated task. That's undifferentiated heavy lifting. What we want to be able to do is say, I've written this piece of code, now go and deploy it to my test environment. Now go and run these tests against it. Make that quick and easy and consistent. I worked with a customer a few years ago where their development team were chasing down bugs in their test environment and having to fix them because they found bugs that simply did not ever manifest in production, because production and test were so different in terms of the configuration. were so different in terms of the environments that what they were designing and testing on in terms of this business critical application, all the infrastructure and the environment around it didn't look like where it was going to run. That took time and effort and energy and flow and a lot of frustration. Oh lordy, was that frustrating to deal with. If that didn't exist, all of that could be spent writing better software, designing better testing environments, implementing automated test execution so that we get bigger, better tests, that our software is now more reliable, that can be automated so that I can say, deploy all of that, let it be tested in an automated fashion, give me the results. I will go and use that kind of testing time, the compile time type stuff, to do something else of value. Or maybe it's quick enough because we've automated it enough that some of this testing takes as long. That'll take as long as it takes me to go and put the kettle on. I'll make myself a cup of tea. I'll come back. It'll be ready for me. Brilliant. Get everything I work done, and I've got a hot drink. Fabulous. We can see for facilities, if we are changing how and where we host things, that will change how we think about it. For example, it could be that some of the testing work that needs to happen around having high availability, fault resilient power cooling systems as no longer needed. The management of all of that. The testing in terms of, let's assume that this data center is no longer available and we're going to do a DR simulation, a business continuity test to fall over. What does that look like? How do we deal with it? We still want to do that type of work so that we are meeting the availability requirements of our customers' needs, that we've got highly resilient fault tolerant applications that can cope with when and not if something goes wrong, because things will go wrong. As I've said, Werner is so fond of saying, everything fails all of the time. But it can be easier. Our staff can make that a routine test. Our security folks get better, easier management of an environment, better visibility, faster visibility. I can drive action more quickly through better automation. Yes, my staff are more productive. Brilliant. My security is likely to be improved because I have a consistent way of deploying and configuring my environment. And I then have a consistent way of updating that environment when, not if, I need to, such as rolling out a patch, because patching is still a thing and will be until I am long gone. You know, I don't have children, but my children, my grandchildren, my great grandchildren, it kind of, this is going to be a thing forever. So my security team are having a better time of it. My security team can now be more efficient. They can spend more time chasing down more interesting issues, helping develop and design ways of working that are more secure, improving on that, automating on that. We've got this positive effect flywheel. Because I've got time, I can do things to make time. I can't give you a second on the clock. Physics dictates that I can't. But I can help my customers, I can help you help your customers, our customers, reduce that unneeded, undifferentiated tactical work so that we can get more available time to do better, more interesting, more valuable work. What we've got here is a case study, an example where, excuse me, using this set of customer data that the customer has actively worked on. They have actively owned the business case, worked with, participated in, provided the data. This is not where we have done something to a customer. This is where we're doing something with the customer. With that customer, we have analyzed their data. We have analyzed what they need. And what we've found is that in this particular customer, that they have got a 38.66%. So let's call that just under 40% of their hours have been saved. Over a third. just under 40%. And that as a hard number instead of percentage as a number, that's 11,000 person hours of time. 11,000 hours. What would you do with your business if you could, wave the proverbial magic wand and go, great, we've now got 11,000 hours of person time we can do things with? What changes could you make to your business when you've suddenly found 11,000 hours of person time? And then what benefits would that bring? Maybe that time is going like we saw with the ad roll, which is, well, we're just saving time, so we're doing more things with the same amount of staff. Maybe it's that we are doing, all they're doing is scaled out. They're doing more instances, more data, more containers, more whatever. Maybe it's that with some of that time that we're going to invest that back into better automation, better management, so that we find yet more time. If we try and turn this into something from more numbers perspective, from a cost perspective, money talks. Yes, we are talking about staff productivity, but one of the outcomes of staff productivity can be cost savings. We're doing more with the same people. Our people are more efficient. And in this particular case study, what we're looking at across a multi-phase delivery, a multi-phase approach. So this is not a click, magic wand, ta-da, we've done it. This is work, this is change. This is a multi-phase delivery where customer has worked to change how they work, to improve how they do things. And over that, they've got a 15%, an 11%, an 18% set of improvements. So in total, across all of this work, they've had a 44% productivity increase out of their developers. That's phenomenal. So we can then start to do some simple mathematics. This is the type of mathematics you could get a child to do. It's that simple. We know the number of hours per year a person would be working. We know the amount of time that has been saved. We know how many developers we have. So we can do some simple mathematics to work out the total number of hours that we've saved. And in this particular case, because we have a large number of developers, 2,000, so it's a big development environment, they've saved 1.6 million hours of time. Now, when we start to multiply things by 1.6 million somethings, we've just got that scale factor. We're multiplying by a large number. So when we get to our customer-owned developer cost, so that's the total owned cost of a developer, it might not be their salary, but it would be their salary, the taxes, the cost of their desk, the cost of the equipment. So we can calculate a cost of having that employee, that total cost per hour, and we know how many hours that we've saved. We can work out that by doing this piece of work or these multi-phases of work, that through staff efficiency, we've saved $132 million. So our staff are that much more productive. There's that much more that they can go and do that adds value to the business, and that we've saved $132 million in the process. That might be funding this change. That might be funding new and interesting work. That might be, if we come back a slide, using some of this time. So we've now got the time and the money to go out and do other things to improve our environment. That's a positive spiral. That's a value of cloud. That is why staff productivity is one of the most compelling values, or the most compelling elements. Because yes, there is about getting things done. Yes, there is an element about higher value work. Yes, there is an element about not having to spend money, so my costs are lower, so money not spent. And then we get to the trinity of those three coming together. So I've got the time, the money, and the available staff to go and do things that improve my business. That's fabulous. I've been in so many environments where that has been such an impossible thing to do. that being able to work in an environment where that is now a thing that we can help our customers with, I like doing that. That's a great day, and that's a good day in the office. So, quick knowledge check, and then we'll see how we are doing. Question number 1. Staff productivity refers to the gain from reducing or eliminating tasks no longer needed with cloud services. So it's fill in the blank, A, B, C, D. Staff productivity refers to the gain from reducing or eliminating tasks no longer needed when using cloud services. A, B, C, or D. Give you a moment to think about that because I need a sip of water. Oh, that's better. And there we go. Okay, see a few things coming in, lots of the same letter. That's quite nice because that is the letter and thing that I was hoping for. It's about efficiency. That has an element to it that might talk to money. Efficiency has an interesting thing when we start talking about, well, I'm using fewer resources and those resources are more efficient. That's reducing the amount of energy that I'm, as a business, burning. That might be reducing my CO2 emissions. That's a fabulous thing. Hopefully, as a result of doing this, we are clearer with the world. I'm not quite sure whether we have a distractor in the example called clarity. Vaguely amusing, but there we go. And that is what we're thinking about there. So, any questions at this point? Any, questions on staff productivity? Or in fact, anything that we've got to before that? Because if you're at this point going, oh, I wish I'd asked Rob that thing at the beginning of the class, ask openly in chat, privately, send it directly to me. Whatever you are happiest with, this is your classroom. And ask questions. They are the single biggest thing that you can do to get as much out of today as possible is to ask questions. No ifs, no buts, no maybes. Asking the questions means that is you're going to get more from it. Oh, that is a lovely question. Let me just put that up on the slide. Okay. So, question there, why not A, as ultimately A should be the end goal? So, there are many ways in which we can think about the costs. One of them is something simple like, I've got 10 things, they cost me $1 each, that's $10. That's a simple set of costs. And that's part of what we're doing here. But we also get to things like my widgets, my servers, my applications need management. If we think about the ad roll example that we saw earlier on, they grew their business significantly. They were simply selling more, processing more data, doing more that will generate revenue, thus generate money, profits. But they did it with their existing staff. Their staff became so much more efficient by using better ways of working. So their business costs did not increase. Therefore, their profits increased. So what we are seeing here is that there is that relationship between helping my staff do more better work. So I'm making them more efficient, which is what the answer to the question is. As a result of that, maybe I don't need to grow out my staff as many. So I've saved costs there, money. My staff are able to do and support other business activities, such as my innovations pipeline. Instead, and we'll see this coming up in one of the other modules, instead of doing 10 projects a year on new and interesting ideas to go out and better services for our customer, maybe they can do 20. That's 100% more things that we can now go and do to improve our business. That might get to more sales, which if it does, hopefully would lead to better, bigger profits. So what we're doing here is whilst money talks in terms of the headline cost figure, doing it on-prem costs us $1. Doing it in the cloud costs us 90 cents. Simple, silly numbers. There is so much more to that in the cloud element that is not just the headline figure of 90 cents in this simple example, that comes back to the total value. That's the cloud value framework, so that when we're looking at total cost and total value, we're doing this true analysis of the two. And that by bringing in the right stakeholders, we could, for example, so this is the example I was thinking of, I referenced earlier, the customer where they wanted to process data more quickly. Not the Aon example that we had on the slide, but one of the customers I've worked with. That was going to make a real difference to that customer in terms of how they did business, how quickly they could deliver things to the market. And ultimately, that's how they make money. It's something I can't give you the details, obviously, but it is something to do with processing of data and then making financial decisions as a result, such as what you do or do not purchase. The faster they can do that, they have the potential to make more profit. That's money. So the efficiencies in how that organization work in terms of supporting that bit of the business has a direct potential impact to making faster, better decisions more quickly in what they do as that business, that should lead to more sales and more profit, and both. So make them more profitable and make them better at what they do, which generates more sales, which would then generate more profit. So if we are looking as total sets of economics, and that's what this course is about, what we're talking about with staff productivity is money, in just not necessarily in the same obvious way as, well, I've got 10 of these are $1 each, that's $10. There's things that we can do there. Has that helped? Has that kind of given you a bit more perspective? Have I opened up other questions for you? One of the things is, you've got a live instructor here, is keep asking questions. If I've sparked a question to the person who asked this or to somebody else that goes, what about this, Rob? What about that? That's literally why I'm here today, is to try and hopefully answer the question, well, what about this? Okay. So, how are we doing on time? How long have we been going for? 1 second. We've been going for that long. Okay, so we are going to do one more module and then we will take our lunch break. We just need to get a little bit further before we take our lunch break. If you are, by the way, typing up kind of other questions, please ask them. Please put them in. My job is to manage all of that. What we're going to talk about now is operational resilience. We're going to talk about, just as context, cloud economics, business value. Oh, it's done it again. Oh, I am so sorry, folks. I have discovered a bug in PowerPoint. I know you're surprised, where if I click on the wrong thing, it takes me right back to the beginning of the deck. And unfortunately, there's some slides in here that repeat a lot to give us context. And if you happen to work for Microsoft and can fix that bug, I will be exceptionally grateful. It is impossibly frustrating. Should we try that one again? We're talking cloud economics. We're talking business value still. We're talking about the cloud value framework, and we are now talking about operational resilience. What we're talking about is uptime and security. We're making sure that our systems are up, are running, are performant, are secure. That our environment is there and is serving our customers. As a business, our environment is delivering what it needs to meet the needs of our business and therefore the needs of our customer. So our customers. And when it doesn't do this, it can have very real impacts. There's the obvious one of whatever I was doing today is no longer happening because I've got to go and fix that issue. Or maybe what I was planning on doing today can't happen because the system's not available. That could be a process thing. It could be the factory has stopped because the processing that controlled the factory has now stopped. So the factory isn't working, the workers aren't able to do things. We're now having knock-on effects. There's an example from a few years ago, and I can't remember which airline it was, so I won't name names because I just can't do it with confidence. But it was an American or an airline in the United States of America that had a major technical problem from a computing perspective. That was as the result of a very physical problem, which is something caught fire. It's a really good way of taking down a system, is it literally caught fire. As a result of that, they couldn't fly their planes. As a result of that, and this is one of the big carriers in the United States, couldn't be an airline. They couldn't actually get their passengers from where they were to where they needed to be. That's the whole point of an airline. Getting people and things from where they are to where they need to be. That has further implications. Those people are now unhappy. Those people still need to get there, and maybe that airline has to make that happen in some way, so put them onto another carrier and pay for that privilege. Maybe that airline has now got to, or does have to, deal with the knock-on effects, because that plane went from A to B, so it's now in B. So it could go from B, maybe back to A, maybe to C, to D, and back to A, because this is a big interconnected system. And now all of a sudden, the plane that should be at B to deal with the passengers there isn't, because it's stuck at A. So those passengers are affected. So you've got all the time and effort to reset the system so you can actually get back to some semblance of normal. You've then got the passenger impact. Those passengers are not going to be happy. And whilst this was the result of a really kind of just a bad day, something caught fire, if you had to go and buy a plane ticket that day or at any point thereafter, you might think twice about using that particular airline. Because, I saw that in the news. No, let's fly the other airline. That's sales lost. Maybe short term, maybe with longer term echoes. That's affecting my profits, my revenues, my profits. That comes back to why not A? Because ultimately it's money. It is. I was down. I couldn't be the airline that I am. My passengers couldn't get from where they were. My passengers stopped being my passengers. Therefore, they're not buying seats on my planes. I am selling less. My costs are still high. I'm now making less money. And this is a real thing. The impacts are significant. Pulling the figures here from the sources that you can see on screen. So these are resources and numbers that have come from the likes of IDC, the likes of Gartner. Application downtime for the Fortune 1000 is costing somewhere between 1.25 and 2.5 billion, that's with a B, dollars. Now, yeah, that's a big window there. That's it's a big window. But even if it was just $1.25 billion of cost, that's a lot of money. And there's real costs to things like data breaches, fines, recovery, cost of fixing things, cost of the ongoing and increased scrutiny from regulators and insurers. There's millions of dollars of cost for losing customer data. There's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars of cost for the downtime of business critical applications. Because when we're down, we're not selling, we're not generating revenue. We then may have to stop what we're doing and deal with that. We may have to replace things. We may have to fix things. We may have to have unproductive staff. So my system being down now means my staff are not doing what they should be doing. That's a double knock on. One, they're not doing what they're doing now. And two, they're not going to be doing something tomorrow because they're doing what they should have done today. That's a knock on in productivity. So there's a direct, as we've seen in the previous module, relationship between productivity and the ability to either save costs and generate more revenue. And there's a direct thing here for just my staff. And then that would be a knock on for my customers as well. That lost what I think of as flow, that disruption of, oh God, it's gone down again. Oh, I'm off for a coffee. And even if it was back 2 minutes later, I've left the office, I've gone out, I've got myself a coffee, I'll come back eventually because I'm annoyed at that system being down. And that was me in a previous life because we had some problems with the system. This is many years ago now. And it's like, oh dearie me, it's gone down again. I think I'll pop up to Starbucks and get myself another cup of coffee. I was friendly with all the staff. Hello, Rob, how you doing? Have a chat, talk rugby with one of the people who work there. She was a bigger rugby fan than I am. These are very real business things with very real business impact, both in terms of direct cost, loss to sales, lost profit in the immediate term, and on a long tail. There might be fines as a result of not doing things. There might be direct costs. Outages cost money. So what can we do about it? Because that sets the scene. What can we do to help our customers? Well, there's what we think of as the 4 cornerstones of operational resilience: operations, security, software, and infrastructure. Let's take a look at these. Operations. Things will go wrong. To err is human. Humans make mistakes. I've made plenty. If somebody ever tells me they haven't made mistakes, I either think they're lying to me or they've just never done anything in life. Some of those could be I made a typo. Some of those could be I was in the wrong environment, dropped table, oh dear, I'm in production. It could be something as utterly mundane as tripping over a power cord, dropping some equipment, throwing coffee on a machine, and I've thrown me coffee everywhere. All of those are everyday mundane sources of failure. There's nothing new in that. There's nothing cloud specific in that. What we're seeing is how we can help that customer is we can help them with using the technology to make this better and more consistent. Automation, managed services, driving efficiency into how we work so that every single time we do this particular thing, it's done exactly the same way. That example earlier of where my test environment, or my client's environment, this is years back, test environment and production were just different. Why? Because different people configured it. It wasn't being driven through automation. It wasn't being driven through a consistent way of doing things. So it took longer and people made mistakes. Or what one person thought was the right way of doing it, a different person thought it was a different thing. And as such, we have this divestiture between testing and prod. It took us longer to monitor things, to manage things, because things were so different. Everything was harder. We didn't have the right tooling to get that visibility. With AWS, that deep visibility of who is doing what, of the performance and usage metrics, of the operational metrics, are trivially easy to capture at scale, to process, to visualize, to trigger alarms, and thus trigger action with. We're giving our customers the tooling and the capability to go out and do things more quickly. We see this with security. Security and security problems are not new. There is nothing on this screen here that is cloud specific. We know about the problems of not patching, of not patching quickly enough, of not having effective monitoring in place. So we can help our customers by giving them the tools and the capabilities to more quickly patch and reconfigure their environment. That has an operational benefit as well. That's a 2 for 1. We can help them by making sure that they've got deep visibility. That's an operational benefit. That's 2 for 1. We can get to the point there's no such thing as a rogue server because we can describe and manage everything. That server under your desk, that does not exist anymore. I can get deep control over who is doing what to all of this and manage that centrally. A really fine-grained access control in a way that realistically I think few people would ever try and do in an on-premise environment. One of my favorite customer quotes is this. This is from Capital One, financial services organization. This comes from their CIO, Chief Information Officer. Quote, "We believe AWS enables us to operate more securely in the public cloud than we can in our own data centers." That is one of the most powerful lines I have ever heard from any of our customers. Our customer, their CIO, part of their board is publicly quoted as saying that they are more secure in AWS than they would be in their own buildings. That is a huge statement. Software. All software is terrible and all software will go wrong. You will leak memory, it will have bugs, processes will go out of control, things will not be properly monitored, actions will happen that you need to dive into, that you need to troubleshoot, you need to debug, you need to fix. All of that is an absolute truism of software. All software has bugs and has issues. We do not magically make that change. I wish we could, but what we can do is give our customers ways of working that helps them manage their software so that they can more easily deploy new versions of software with the bug fixes. That when they deploy those new versions of software, if there is something in there that they didn't catch in testing, despite the fact that testing can now be faster and easier and more thorough, we can quickly roll back to a known good state, even if that is not a state that we want to be in and we're trying to move away from, which that blue, green, and the rollback. And that we can do this in that using modern ways of working. So continuous integration, continuous delivery. We could add into that continuous testing, the pipelines, that bit from where a developer can quickly and easily go, right, this is good. I think this is good to go. It gets through all of the testing, a thorough set of testing. And only if it passes all of that are we then saying it's good to go. And even if we then find a bug, we can easily roll that back. And whilst we're doing all of this, we can get deep visibility into what's going on. Great from an operational point of view, great from a security point of view. We can have a dynamic CMDB, configuration management database, great from an operational view, great from a security point of view. And that we can maybe use this as part of our patching. So instead of patching a server in a traditional sense, which is deploying an update, we roll forward, we deploy a new environment with the patches built in. That's great from a security point of view. We get really good at making changes. And because we do a lot of changes and get really good at making changes, our operational integrity, our operations are better. We're going to have fewer, smaller outages. Finally, for these four, we're going to see that that things go wrong. Everything fails all of the time, to quote Vernal. And that can still happen. Fires, floods, earthquakes, power cuts. All of those are still an issue. How do we help? Well, we give our customers capability to build their applications in resilient environments. So each data center that we have, and then multiple data centers form an availability zone, those data centers themselves have highly resilient power and networking and cooling that the customer doesn't need to manage. And we give, in each region in the world, there's at least 3 availability zones per region, so that even if an entire availability zone has a bad day, the other AZs in that region do not, because they are geographically meaningful distances apart, so that, for example, they're not on the same floodplain or they're not on the same fault lines. They're operated differently. So if we're doing something in AZ number 1, we're not doing it in AZs number 2 and 3 in that same, or 4 or 5, whichever ones we're on that same region, so that if something goes wrong, it only impacts one AZ. Our customers can use this so that their applications are highly available, so that when and not if something goes wrong, they can cope with it, because they've designed that in and built that in, and they get to build on top of highly available systems that they just have to use. They don't have to manage. I'm not going to read all of these out. I'm going to read one out because it's the one I like the most out of all of these. A company here in the UK called the Train Line. They sell train tickets. And quote, migrated all our workloads to AWS to reduce downtime by 60% with an annual saving of £1.2 million. They've reduced their downtime by 60%, by more than half. They are now significantly better at being able to serve their customers and sell train tickets. And at the same time, they've reduced their cost of running all of that by over £1 million. That is significant. That is a real business benefit. Trainline are able to sell more tickets, make more money. The customers of Trainline are able to buy more tickets and then get on and do things, similar to we saw with the airlines. And there's the MedStar example there, which is still my favourite example. That's deeply, deeply human. So that gets us to the end of this part. What we are going to do now, to your possible delight, is we are going to have lunch. We are going to take a lunch break. We are going to have a 45-minute lunch break. A 45-minute lunch break. So we are going to come back at 1 o'clock UK time. 45 minutes time, 1 o'clock UK time. We will then continue with exactly where we were, picking up into the final of the modules to do with the Cloud Value Framework, which is business agility. We will then look at cloud financial management, introduce things like the accreditation, and then we are done. So please do get some time away from the screens. I know there is always that call of got to do the email, but we've got plenty more to talk about after lunch, and getting some time away from the screens, some fresh air, some tea, some coffee, whatever it is that's going to work for you, that is important. So please do get yourself at least a few minutes away from the screens. I will see you all in 45 minutes time at 1 o'clock UK time. See you then, folks. Hey folks, welcome back. That was lunch. Have we all had a break, a rest, some time away from screens? I really hope you all got some time away from screens. Have we, for example, had some food as well? Just, I know it's going to be lunchtime for many of us. It might be closer to an evening meal for some of us as well. We have that wonderful geographic spread from the Nordics up so we had something up in the Nordics, we had somewhere down in Johannesburg, and we got as far east as, trying to do the geography in my head, trying to remember which way around it goes, Malaysia. Quite a big geography. So welcome back. This afternoon, we've got another couple of hours together. We are scheduled to finish by 1500, 3 p.m. UK time. So 2 more hours according to the schedule. We will be done by then. We may be done a little bit earlier depending upon the number of questions that we get. That's not an excuse to not ask questions. I want you to ask questions. But it is just that allowance for time that we have, and if we get fewer questions, we get to finish a little bit earlier. It's just how it rolls. We are going to come straight back now into business agility, module number 5. We are still thinking about the cloud value framework. This is the last of the modules for this section, and then we get into the other part of cloud economics, financial management. So let's think about business agility. As I've said a couple of times now, this is the one that I get probably most excited about. This is the one that I think, for all of the discussions that we have had, this is the one that, for me, with my perspective of the world, my experiences, my biases, the one that I find the most interesting. Because one of the things I have struggled with in my career is the speed at which we can or cannot do things, as the case may be, is how long things can take, even the mundane items. And that by not being able to respond quickly and appropriately, that's been personally, professionally challenging. That one of the reasons I have spent the last 7 years or so working in cloud is because of the options it has given me, it has given my clients, it's given my customers around improving how their business works. And that's a huge part for me of a conversation around cloud. It is around helping our customers make the very most out of the opportunities that they either make, that are presented to them, the needs that they have to respond to. As I said earlier, I think the textbook example on this for years to come will be February and March 2020, and certainly for many of us here in Western Europe, and I'm not sure about other parts of the world, we had a government mandated work from home. The government told me I had to work from home. Now, I did anyway, but it was new to a lot of people. It was new to a lot of people, and the ability to respond to that quickly and efficiently could make a real difference to that business. And that's what we're talking about here. The other thing that we can start to do is think about, how do we measure business agility? And we can use the customer's own data, the customer's own metrics, to show and prove to them the values that they are getting. There are some potential KPIs on screen here. We're going to look at a few of them. We're going to look at 3 examples of the type of KPIs that businesses might be interested in. There are clearly many others. You may be working with customers with industry-specific KPIs, with business-specific KPIs. You may have experience of working so that you can come to a customer and say, hey, here are other KPIs to consider, or, yes, you want to measure that. I can see where you're going. In my experience, that may not give you quite the view that you want. Have you considered this twist on that, or this perspective on that, to give you a better indicator of the true performance? To look at these 3, and again, these are numbers that have come out of a cloud economics benchmark that we have ran, we have seen that there is simply an accelerated time to market, very nearly a 1/5 faster. So we are simply taking less time to get our applications out there doing things. That's from getting an idea to getting it out there. That when we're putting things out there, there are more features, more fixes in that release. And that, as such, we are changing our environment more quickly. So that could be a fix in terms of a bug that's been annoying the customer's customer. It could be a feature release in something that will help generate new revenue, new profits, more profits. It could be about something that will improve or change, hopefully improve how this application works, and that might reduce my cost base, therefore increasing my potential profit margin. I can look at the amount of revenue per application per user. How much revenue do I get off each and every single one of my ultimate end users? Am I doing things so that I'm attracting more revenue per customer? Am I doing things to attract more customers? To simply have more customers and to get more revenue and hopefully then more profits out of each of those customers? Because that's what business agility means. That means that we are growing the business. So coming back to that genuinely lovely question about why was the answer not A, isn't essentially money the end goal here? Well, everything we're doing is about having a better business, which should result in bigger, better profits. But we're looking at it from the perspective of delivering more and better to the ultimate end user, because that's how we get it. By obsessing about the customer, that's how we're going to get bigger, better profits. More sales, more profit, both. Now, before we get started on this, I'm going to open up with a pet hatred of mine, and that's the phrase fail fast. I really don't like that term. I get the intention behind the term. It's a fairly commonly used term, but I dislike quite intently the word fail. We are not necessarily failing here. What we are doing is, in a very scientific type of usage of the words, we are going to conduct an experiment and learn things. Some of those experiments will give us the results that we had expected, that we are hoping for. Some of those experiments, statistically, most of them, will not. In all of these cases, we've learned. As a business, we've learned what has been good for our business because it's good for our customers. We've learned more about what does and does not work, maybe through A/B testing, maybe through some other technical changes. Maybe we've had an idea of a new service or a new feature and released that, and maybe it's, taken over the world. Maybe nobody liked it. But we've learned quickly. As we've done that, we've done it in a way that helps to manage the risks so that we can do more projects. As we saw in one of the examples earlier on, because my staff are more efficient, I've got a bigger throughput in my pipeline of potential projects. I can simply do more. I can simply fail fast more times. That means that I can deploy more ideas, more experiments, go out and do more things that hopefully will succeed. And the more I do things, the more I will succeed. I can't remember who said it, which is, I found that the harder I work, the luckier I am. You miss every swing you do not take. I can do more. I'm going to miss many, but I'm going to hit more as well. And when those ones that fail, I really don't like that word, fail fast, what I can do is, because I have infrastructure that is software defined, is I can shut down the technology. I can stop paying for it. Instead of having to have invested tens or hundreds of thousands of pounds in equipment to go and conduct this experiment to hope that it works, I can spend a relatively small amount of money and scale. If the idea is not a success, I can close all of that down and manage my costs. If it is a success, I can scale that out, grow as my business grows, getting the right things at the right times. That graph that we saw of actual versus estimated demand. In all of this, we are not failing. We are doing things in hope that it will make things better. Some of those will work, some of those will not. I get that fail fast is a kind of a bit of an industry term, or it has that behind it. I just don't like the word failure in the context of this. We're doing things, some of them will work out, some of them will not. You can argue the linguistics of it about it, and maybe it's an interesting thing to do in a pub. We can innovate more, learn through every single step, and manage the risks in terms of a cost risk, cash risk, so that, yes, we did this thing, no, it didn't work out, but it was worth trying, and this is how we managed the cost around it. And I referenced this earlier on, but I wanted to show you this slide anyway in terms of some numbers bringing to life what we're discussing. And these numbers come from a report by Puppet Labs. And broadly, we've got here, two types of performers in terms of change: high performers and low performers. What we're seeing here are some pretty stark differences. That in a high performing organization, that lead time to change is an hour. But we've just had a 45-minute lunch break, so we know what an hour feels like. In the low performers category, that's 449 hours. That's something that's much more meaningfully measured in days. If you say, "Oh, I'm going to go and I'm going on holiday." How long are you going on holiday for? 449 hours. Nobody says that. That's not a thing we're thinking about. And one of the side effects of this is this deployment frequency. In high performers, 1,460 a year. In the low performers, 32. In the high performers, that's multiple deployments a day. And in the low performers, it's less than one a week. And because we're doing so many more of them, we simply get good and better, increasingly better at managing change. The changes that we make are smaller because we make so many of them so easily. That means fewer of them are going to fail. When they do fail, because some will, the mean time to recovery, that time it takes us to get back into a known good state, is much, much quicker. Why? Because the change we made was much smaller, because we do hundreds and hundreds, 1,000 plus a year. We're getting really good at doing this because we do it 3 times a day on average. We make small incremental changes multiple times a day as compared to probably much larger changes less than once a week. That's one of the key differences here, that with the business agility, yes, we're getting to be able to make changes in terms of needs and opportunities, but also we're just getting really good at making change. And because change is then absolutely normal, when something comes utterly out of the blue that we've got to deal with, or if we don't take advantage of this opportunity, man, we're going to be turning down a potential upside of, we've just got to do this. Okay, it's just another change. As compared to a lower performing organization where, the lead time on that, that's 449 hours. Well, can we compress it? I suppose we could get it down to 349 hours, but that's still a long time. Question I can see coming in chat. Some KPIs like mean time to recovery also used in DevOps, but we always track AWS API logs to measure that. So you could get there's an it depends here. I swear I have to. It's almost a contractual obligation to put that into every class. You could, for example, if you are measuring things like, if you're looking at something like mean time to recovery and it's up, down, then something like CloudWatch would be able to capture and visualize those statistics for you, give you that data clearly that says, this is when we're down, this is when we're back up, that's the time difference. If it was something a little more recovery in terms of maybe performance, again, we can capture that. We can measure, 2 time points, or we can measure a series of points across a time and calculate some deltas. So it's not about saying it's an API call. It would be to say, what's my KPI metric is an API call. It would be about saying, what data am I feeding into my appropriate system, and then how do I use that data, such as availability time, or such as performance metrics. You could, in theory, then turn that into you could abstract that out further. You could turn that query into a callable thing, which you can make available via an API. So you could do it that way. It's not a pure AWS API, but you could have that as a programmatic query, so that you are constantly querying your own data that says, am I doing the right thing? Am I up? Am I performant? Am I meeting my service level agreements? For example, your mean time to recovery could be about the customer's service level agreements to their customers in terms of uptime, performance, throughput, whatever is good for them. And because we're capturing all of that data, we can query it. We can take that a step further and make it proactive, which is we're capturing that data and we're then saying we're still compliant to our metrics, but we're trending the wrong way. And I'm going to let my human beings know, or I'm going to do some technical action to get the trend to as it should be. Or actually, programmatically, I've detected we have breached our SLA, and I'm going to tell my human beings that they need to go and do something. Why? How? Because I've captured the data through visibility, and we saw that was one of the cornerstones of success in terms of operations, and it's frankly the cornerstone of success in anything to do with IT. And then we can capture that data and we can analyze it and query it and get the value from it. Exactly as I was talking about in one of my case studies, but in this case, instead of it being things like business data and financial decisions, it could be measuring your MTTR. So is it an API? Cool, not necessarily. Or no, not really. Is it something that we can use AWS technology to help us understand? Absolutely, without question. CloudWatch and CloudWatch logs are going to be the tools for you. That's absolutely where I would focus in terms of tooling. So let's do a quick knowledge check on this, see how we are doing. This is a pretty short, punchy bit, but just making sure that we've got the elements in there. Fill in the blank time. A, B, C, D. Business agility means what? A, B, C, or D? Yeah. Lots of people putting this one in. Not a surprise. Delights to see. Responding faster, experimenting more, delivering results quicker in the same time or less. I think about that as quicker. We're doing more in less time so that we can do more overall. I like the word experimenting because I genuinely dislike the term fail fast. I've used it. I continue to use it at times because it's a common way. It's an effective way of communicating something. I just don't like the language. Question number 2. Business agility allows customers to innovate and increase fail fast whilst reducing risks and costs. Which of the following concepts best describes, or which of the following best describes the concept of fail fast? Dislike that term intensely. A, B, C, or D, which of those is a better description or the best description of fail fast? Yep, that's looking good. That's looking good. Quite a few people coming back saying D. Yep, it's that going in, conducting an experiment, as we saw in the previous example, or doing some form of change. And if that does not work out, quickly and easily shutting down the resources to reduce wastage. So that could be cost as a classic example, certainly in this course. And it's about having that flexibility to do things because that's a key part of business agility. Question number 3, which of the following key performance indicators, KPIs, for measuring business agility? Which of the following are KPIs for measuring business agility? It says select all that apply. I'm going to leave that one up without telling you how many it is at this point, because I want to see where your thinking is, and then we will talk about it. So, a few different answers in there, lots of common themes. Let's take a look at what the book answer is and discuss it a little. So the book answer is A, B, C, D. And the book answer is not E. Now, let's think about this for a moment. So new applications launched per year, and that could also be extended to maybe new services, new features for existing applications. There's things that we can talk about there. So that makes sense. That's one of the things we might look at. How they are then adopted. We've released this new capability. Do people actually use it? If the answer to that is no, then we've learned things. How quickly can we deploy new features, new capabilities, improved performance, bug fixes, security fixes? That deployment frequency in general. I get to see that's pretty good. Now, the last two. Employee retention. I think that is a great indicator that we're doing the right thing. Because if you are somewhere where it's a good place to work, you probably want to stay there. I like working for Amazon. I want to keep working for Amazon. I like my job. I love my job. And I've been in places, though, in previous lives where employee retention was not so great because it wasn't such a great place to work. Things were needlessly hard. Things were needlessly difficult. Everything was just hard work. And that affected our employee retention. That is a KPI in itself. That is also a cost because it's a cash cost to get new employees into the business, that cost of hire. There's a cost of the person with experience leaving and somebody new coming in and then spinning up and getting to the point they are fully effective. That takes time and that therefore means money. So I think that's a good one. And then the last one, paycheck increases. Now, that's probably not a KPI, but does it have a potential indication? I think it could. It's not part of the book answer, but if I'm doing lots of work and as such cutting out my costs so I'm more profitable, maybe I can afford to pay my employees more. And that helps by having happier retained employees because, yeah, I work here. It's a great place to work. They pay me well. Yeah, of course I want to work here. I can attract more talent into my business with my higher salaries and people want to come and work for me. Well, that's a great thing because it means I've now got my pick of people to come and work for me. Maybe it's an indication that because we could give this out, our business is actually in a great place financially because we can go and do this. So is it a KPI that is an answer in a test? No. Is it something I think that would be indicative of a business that is in a great place? I would say yes. My tuppence, my perspective on the world. So, any questions on that piece? Anything you would like to add? Okay. Can't see anything coming in, but if you are typing, please do continue. Questions are always, always welcome. What we're going to do is we are going to come into the next section. And what you might be delighted to hear is that we have finally going to stop, well, mostly finally, going to stop talking about business value. We've done the cloud value framework. Hooray! Thank goodness. We get to talk about something else for a period of time. We've spent 4 hours talking about about business value. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about cloud financial management. And I've said several times, it is a well-known thing, I hope, that with AWS, the customers are only paying for what they use. This is one of the sides of the coin I have been talking about in terms of use less, pay less. We've driven out costs. How do we, as partners, help our customers so that they only pay for what they need, so that we are driving in efficiency. So whilst we are reducing our bill, that's one side of the coin, that's a great thing, that for every random rupee that we choose to spend, that we get as much for that unit of currency as possible. And that's where we start thinking about financial management. We're not going to turn you into accountants. We're not going to turn you into financial analysts. That's not what this course is about. This is making sure that you've got the knowledge and the tools to think about how can we go about helping our customers manage their costs, drive out cost, drive in efficiency, spend less, get more for every pound, every penny they do spend. So with this, the very first part of it, arguably the absolutely most critical part of financial management, is visibility. Knowing what you've got and knowing what it's doing for you. We can do that in AWS through tagging, metadata, data about data. We can tag our resources and then use that as a part of our analytics. So we could tag it, as it says here, with a cost center. So something that we can tie back into our financial reporting tools, tie back into our analytical tools, so that we can say, all of these resources here in AWS have tagged to this cost center, and that's part of our internal, maybe cross-charging, maybe it's part of our internal accountancy. Or we can start to maybe think about resources in more fine grain. So maybe a cost center has many different applications. So we could put in something about an application specific set of resources. All of these resources support the tea making application. All of these resources support the coffee making application. They come back into the hot drinks cost center. Very silly example, but bear with me. And we can add in other things, such as what environment is it? Production, UAT, testing, development, sandbox. So that we could maybe then start to query it, which is, how much money have we spent on the testing environment for the hot drinks department this quarter? Well, we've now got all of that metadata and all of the raw data, so we can go and query that and start to go, okay, we can look at the trends of what we're doing. It's like, well, we look here at, I say, our production costs for the tea making application. We can see that they are going up. We're spending more. Okay. Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? It depends. It depends upon why are they going up. Is it because we have increased our sales dramatically? We're simply selling so much more cups of tea than we were before that we're now spinning up more resources to cope with that load because our business is growing fabulous? Or is it because we forgot to turn some things off and we've not been managing it properly? So although our sales are flat, our costs are increasing. That's not a great place, but we've got the data to measure that. And we can, as I said earlier on, make data-driven decisions. What is my actual usage? What am I getting for that? What do I do about it? My costs are increasing, my sales are increasing in line with it. That's probably quite a nice place to be. My costs are decreasing, my sales are increasing. That's a fabulous place to be. There is nice alignments, things like that. I can look at, for example, data that says, do we turn off our non-production environments when we are not using them? So test, dev, sandbox, that type of thing. Production keeps running, obviously, but in the evenings and the weekends when my developers are, certainly I hope, at home with their families and not at work, have we turned off all those resources that they use during the normal day so that we're not paying for them? Because we don't need them at 8 o'clock at night, because hopefully our developers are at home with their families. And As such, we could stop paying for them, especially if we've got nice, well-defined ways of turning things on and off and building environments through automation, and turning things on and off to help manage cost is just a normal part of how we do things, because that's great from an operational basis, it's great from a resiliency point of view. Oh, and it helps us save some money too. And it becomes that way of building into how the development teams work, which is get used to working this way because we're turning your environments off at night to save money. But because you're used to working in that way, it's now easier to work that way in production. I'm reinforcing my ways of working. With all of this, there are things that we want to be able to do. We need to be able to visualize and see what's going on. One of the ways that we can do this is, as a partner, we could build some custom dashboards. We can take the raw data, we could build some custom dashboards for our customers, looking at what can we do. So, for example, based upon this data, we can clearly see visualized here that we've got lots of reserved instances, lots of on-demand instances, but there's this clear line of on-demand that it's steady. Let me just draw that line in. Here, I won't do it all the way across, because rather embarrassingly, it turns out I'm really bad at drawing straight lines with a mouse on a screen. I can't do it. So that's the point. So there's this element here that potentially could be covered by reserved instances, giving us better cost efficiency. And for this short period of time, this week, according to that calendar, that's true. But that's where we want to have volumes of data. So maybe for this particular week, that we should have had more reserved instances. But maybe this week is the anomaly. That's where more data helps us, so that we can find the true trend over time. We want to look at where are we spending what money. So we can then go and say, actually, how are we doing compared to expected? How are we doing to budget? Are we doing the right things? One of the other things we could do is use tooling from you, our partners. Our partners build amazing tools to help our customers. That might be your organization. I don't know where you all come from. It might be partners of you, so other organizations that you partner with, so that you can go to a customer and say, yes, we can talk to you about AWS, and we can also talk to you about some of the things that we see here, and maybe other technologies as well. So that as a partner, you can come and say, yeah, we can talk to you about AWS, and we can put that in the context of this, 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 and this. Oh, and by the way, we've got a lot of industry experience with your industry. Can we help? And we can use these tools to take the data, to analyze it, to make it visible, so that we can drive out cost. We can use AWS native tooling. Before we get to that question there, I guess with API support, we can go for the freeware like an Elk stack. Absolutely, that could be a custom dashboard. You could take whole piles of raw data, put that into your favorite Elk stack, and start to visualize it and to query it. That's exactly something that you could do as a customer, as a partner building that for a customer, so that you can then drive visibility into that data in something that's meaningful to that customer, so that they're getting what they need to take data-driven decisions. That's what we're doing here. We're helping the customer manage their spend, so reduce the number of units of currency and get more for it. And one of the ways you could, as you rightly put in chat, say do this in a self-managed way in that custom dashboard, is use something like an Elk stack, Elasticsearch, Linux, and Kubernetes. You could take a managed search tool such as the AWS OpenSearch service. You could use existing tooling that you have already around something like an Elk stack that you're pouring this data into. There's a lot that we can do here. Part of the art, the science, the engineering that we're bringing to our customers is that idea of, oh, we could do it this way. Yeah, we can make that work. Kibana, not. Thank you. Yes, sorry. You can tell I've been thinking about some container stuff for a long time. As you rightly put in chat, K is for Kibana, not for Kubernetes. Sorry. To is human, as I said earlier, and this particular human, yeah, I've been thinking about Kubernetes lately. We can use native tooling. So if you don't want to build your own using a service on using either Kubernetes or Kibana, maybe Kibana on Kubernetes, who knows, lots of other services possibly begin with the letter K. We can use native AWS capabilities like Cost Explorer. It's a tool to help you explore the costs. Where am I spending what money? What does that mean for my business? Where, for example, am I paying for reserved instances that I am not using? Where, for example, do I have resources that I am spinning that arguably should be covered by a reserved instance? How do my costs, does my usage change over time? How does it go it per team, per department, per cost tag, per environment, combinations and permutations, all thereof? I've enriched my ability to do analytics by using the metadata. Everything else is just tooling. Now, that's a really important set of tooling to get the value out of that data. But if I don't have the data in the first place, it's really hard. So this is where, as a partner, we can think about tagging resources with cost codes, with owners, with teams, with business units, with rich metadata, or having that in the CMDB if you don't want to go straight into the tags, something where you can look it up works just as well. So that I can say, here is a resource, what does it do? Or here was a resource. I had this EC2 instance. It was running for 24 hours last Tuesday. Who owned it? What did it do? What business value was that generating for me? Oh, it was the old web server for that environment. Cool. Data. And then we get to driving out costs. This is about driving in efficiency, getting more for what we are spending. And there are 4 different things we're going to talk about: instance sizes, elasticity, pricing models, and storage. So let's talk about something nice and simple to get us started. EC2 and EC2 sizes. So that's also EC2 families, sizes, and generations. So there are different types of EC2 instance. There's general purpose, there's compute optimized, there's memory optimized, there's storage optimized, there's accelerated. There was the very recent release for video transcoders, very niche workload. And how do I make sure that my customer has got the right type of instance of the right size, small, medium, large, extra large, etc., and of the right generation? Because as we release new capabilities, those newer families are likely to give you a better price performance point. So one of the ways you can help a customer save money is by putting them onto the newer instances. So upgrading from, say, a generation 5 to a generation 6, that's likely to help them save money. In an on-premise environment, we may have specified some standard size servers because we just keep buying the same things over and over again, for better and worse. That's where we come back to that usage discussions we were having earlier. What's your actual usage of those resources? Not how long is that machine on for, but how is it actually being used over a meaningful amount of time? Because it could be that those resources are underutilized a lot of the time, or they are periodically very busy and periodically very unbusy. How do I capture that information so that I've got the right size and family and size of instance so that I'm using the right tool. Because this is what we're talking about here. It's a tool for a job. It's making sure that I've got the right things in place. And if I put in what I think is right in an on-premise world, if I've got that wrong, it could be really hard and expensive to change because I've bought tin. There's physical servers in a rack somewhere. There's physical storage in a rack somewhere. Now, in cloud, if I've made the wrong choice, it is trivially easy to change that. Oh, I put in a 4XL server because I thought that would be the right one. We've been watching it for the last period of time. Actually, we could have got away with a 2XL server. That would have been fine. I'll resize that server. I've just saved some money. Or the inverse. We thought the 2XL server would be right. Got that wrong. We fail fast, though, much as I dislike the term, and increase that to a 4XL server. Or we will, as we see in a couple of slides' time, scale out elastic in an elastic way. I can use tooling to help me identify sizing changes. Where could I get better price performance, such as a different instance, such as reserved instances? So I can use things like Compute Optimizer. I can use things like Cost Explorer to get recommendations from AWS on how to save money. We are going to tell you how to give us less money. I love that part of my job. I love going to a customer and saying, hey, if we do these things, you give me less money. And if you do that and you spend less money with AWS, I will be recognized as having done a really good job for you. I will be celebrated if you've cut your bill. High five, Rob, you really helped that customer. That's how we work. In a lot of organizations, oh, Rob, they're spending 20% less with us. If I go to a customer here and say, hey, if we do all these things, you could spend 20% less, I'm going to get a sore hand from the number of high fives I get. It's a fabulous way of thinking about the world. You as a partner can go and do exactly the same thing. You can go and help our customers using exactly the same tools to spend less money, to get more for it. One of the other ways we can get more for it is about having elasticity in what we are doing. We've seen a version of this graph already. I've talked to a couple of these things. One of the simplest ways of saving money is turning things off if you're not using them. When I was growing up, my parents if you're not in the room, you turn the light off. You turn the light off, you're not using the electricity, you're not spending the money. Exactly the same is true here. If you're not using that resource, turn it off. Stop spending the money. That non-production environment that you don't use overnight and you don't use at the weekends, you could schedule that to turn it off so that you're not paying for the running costs. You may be paying from the storage cost of that environment, but that's part and parcel of, that's one of the cost optimizations. You could, for example, trash the whole environment and delete it so there are no storage costs, and rebuild it using pipelines the next morning so it's clean and fresh and ready to go, and you're using that to save money, and you're using that to help build in ways of working in terms of using things like pipelines, using ephemeral infrastructure. As we're doing things like that, that lends itself to using things like auto scaling, automatically scaling the resources that we have when we need them, in and out. And we can do that based upon data programmatically using auto scaling, so that here, as our demand is increasing, our resources increase. Here, as our demand lowers, our resources lower. So if our application can support scale out, that horizontal scaling, maybe we're using relatively smaller instance types. So instead of one 16XL machine that sits there and some of the times is quite well used and some of the times isn't, we could use multiple smaller machines and just add units of capacity as we go, as we need to, and then bring them back in when we don't. And maybe we've got that as a part of integrating into the ways that we work for things like blue-green redeployment. So that new thing that we're scaling out isn't just a scale out for capacity, it could be scaling out for a new software version. And then migrate the traffic over and scale in the old one. Or we scale out the new one, roll the traffic over, go, oh dearie me, that didn't work quite as we hoped. We're going to fail fast. Roll the traffic back to the environment that's exactly as it was and get rid of this new environment. And then we go again later on. I'm using the elasticity of my infrastructure to support more cost-efficient ways of working and to support ways of working that make me better at what I do. It's a pillar and it's a vine. Everything is supporting everything. And then we get to the art, the science, the engineering that is our pricing models. There is an entire white paper on pricing, and I'm going to share that link with you via the follow-up email if you don't have it already or don't want to go and search for it using your favorite search engine. I'll give you a link to use. And this is where we're going to blend those different types of purchasing options to get to something that is best for that customer, where we can blend that mixture of on-demand, reserved, spot, savings plans, dedicated hosts, and bring all of that together to give something that is best for that specific customer. And that as that changes over time, we're going to continue to monitor that so that we can manage that so that we are always driving the best possible outcome for our customers in terms of the lowest possible cost. So we can take, for example, reserved instances. Here we are reserving capacity. Here we are reserving that capacity for either 1 or 3 years. We can make some choices about how exactly we reserve it. Is it based on a specific AZ or a specific region? Are we locking things in like sizing or operating systems? And all of that is going to tweak the discount as compared to on demand. But where we can model that and make that commitment, we can get a very significant saving, up to 75%. Well, for some of the workloads, that will be a great thing. And we would probably be able to identify that during our cost analysis phase, because we're going to go out and analyze the workloads that customer has, analyze its usage, and that will help us understand if reserved instances is a good choice for that particular workload. We can look at, for example, spot. Now, spot instances are really interesting because let's give you some context. We know what an on-demand instance is. We're paying for that compute when we use it. We turn it on, we start paying for it. We turn it off, we stop paying it. No long-term commitments. Great for things like short-lived workloads, spiky workloads, testing things. Great choice. We know and have just seen that with reserved instances, if we can make a commitment to AWS in terms of usage, in return, we can give a commitment to that customer in terms of a significant discount compared to the on-demand, and that can be great for committed and steady state applications or having a pool of resources that we're going to use in that way. The third one that we're going to look at here is spot. Spot is interesting. Let me talk to you about what spot is to give you the context for those who aren't aware. As AWS, part of what we need to do is have a large amount of capacity available so that any given point, our customers can come to us and say, I want this, and they can have it. Part of our work is to manage that capacity. It means that we have a lot of capacity available. We have to do. And at some points of any given block of time, some of that is not being used. What we do is we sell off that spare excess capacity to our customers at a discount of up to 90%. That's 90% as compared to the on-demand prices. The thing with this is that where we are doing this, what we will say is it's exactly the same technical capability as an on-demand or reserved instance. This is just a billing construct. So there's nothing different about it technically. What is different about it is that with a 2-minute warning, we can pull back that excess capacity if we need it for another customer, because you're getting it at, or the customer's getting it up to a 90% discount. So this doesn't work well for applications that have to be up and running 24 hours a day or cannot be interrupted. So your mail server, for example, is not likely to be running on a spot instance. But for those applications that can be flexible, that can tolerate interruptions, so maybe batch processing, maybe it's a workload that is stateless because you put the state in something like Elasticache, and it doesn't matter if things disappear because of the spot pullback, then it can give you lots of flexibility at potentially very significant savings. And this turns into business value. We've gone, as we can see here with Yelp in the middle, something that was taking 2 days is now taking 30 minutes. Customers are saving huge amounts of money, like Lyft and Illumina. There are plenty of other use cases out there of people using this capability. The thing that we have to remember here is that you could have your workload interrupted. So it's not going to work for every single type of workload. But for those where it does, it can be a great way of getting that compute resource at a potentially very significant discount. So we think about where we are using it, so that with that flexibility, we're getting the price benefit and we are still getting the resources that we need. One of the ways that we can do this, it's done it again. I'm so sorry, folks. That is twice in a day. Let me try that again. One of the ways that we can do this is we can use the native integrations that AWS has between various AWS services, and various partners have as well, and Spot. So that, for example, one of the ways you can make use of Spot is by using the integration between Spot and ECS and EKS, so Elastic Container Service, Elastic Kubernetes Service, so that you're getting your compute clusters for ECS or EKS on top of Spot, so that there's a native integration, so that if there are changes to the underlying because of changes in Spot, the container service gets that and can react accordingly. The same for batch. You can go out and say, run this batch job, run it on this Spot fleet, and as things come and go because of Spot changes, maybe a pullback, batch gets it and works with you. It doesn't suit every type of service, but for those services that it does, it can be an amazing way to help our customers save money, and it can be an amazing way for them to get great speed. As we saw with the Yelp example, if I just come back a couple of slides, here they may have saved money as well. But what we're talking about is something that used to take 2 days is now taking the time, less time than we had for our lunch break. So maybe there's a money saving here in terms of the build cost, but it could be that what's actually more important is we'll spend the same amount of money, we'll just get it so much faster. And because we've done it so much faster, we're going to get other business benefits that might improve our sales and our profitability, because there's that interrelationship between the two. And we're going to find similar things with storage as well, because we've been talking about compute, but we're going to have something very similar with storage, because what's compute without some storage behind it? Because that's where the data lives. And if we take our object store S3 as an example, although we can see similar things with the likes of EFS, there are different tiers of storage because data has different access patterns, different heat. Some data is really hot, access all the time, and some data is archival. We need to keep it maybe for years at a time, but we may never actually access it. We've just got to keep it for legal or regulatory purposes. And that might change over time. That new data is likely to be accessed more frequently than older data. The classic example of this is if you think about the photos you've got on your one of these, the photos that you've just taken are probably much more active in terms of being looked at, being shared, than the photos you took 6 months ago, 12 months ago. It's not that you can't access them, it's just that you're probably more interested in that newer photo, that newer video, because that's how humans work. So we can use the different storage classes of S3. So S3 standard, S3 infrequent access, S3 infrequent access one's own. We can use things like Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive so that we've got the right type of storage at the right time for the right data. And we can use programmatic capabilities called lifecycle policies to move data from, say, hot to warm to cold to deep freeze over time programmatically. So that, for example, we could say this log data, we will keep it in instant S3 standard for 180 days because that's our normal search window. It will then migrate down over time to the point we're going to keep it for, let's say, 5 years in Glacier Deep Archive, and then we will automatically delete it. And that's great if we know the access patterns. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, sometimes they change. And we need to be able to help our customers with that too. So one of the things that we can do here is use things like Amazon S3 intelligent tiering. Here, we set the data tier as intelligent and let the S3 service move that data between standard, frequent access as it says, and infrequent access based upon its actual usage. So based upon the actual usage of that data, that data will be stored in the right tier, the correct tier to get the best cost. There's no performance impact, there's no operational overhead impact, it just happens. At which point you're going, that might be brilliant for some workloads. Maybe a brand new application, maybe an application that's been around for a while, but it's being evolved. It now uses object storage instead of something else. We don't quite know how it's going to work out yet in the longer term. So we're going to help let the computers do what they're really good at, which is allowing the technology to allow us to make data-driven decisions. This is a data-driven decision in terms of tiering that then helps our customers have a lower cost. As we think about costs, we think about things like planning. How can we help our customers plan their spend? We can use things like the pricing calculator to calculate a potential price. We can use the price lists. We can use APIs that get the prices that calculate things. And as we'll see in one of the next modules, we can use things like the MPA tool, the Migration Portfolio Assessment tool. With all of this, what we are doing is we're helping our customers understand what their costs could be, to plan it and forecast it, because, as we said, we're only paying for what we use. So we can reduce our costs by using less. That means that instead of that fixed CapEx cost, we've got that OpEx cost. And that's part of how we can help our customers spend less. Another way that we can help our customers spend less is to help build bridges within the organization. I've used that phrase already a couple of times. And this is where we think about cloud financial operations. Excuse me a second. This is where, as a partner, something we might be doing is, some people call it the Cloud Center of Excellence. It seems to be in some quarters now called the Cloud Enablement Center. Call it what you wish, but it's a role, a capability to act as resources inside an organization to help make that organization usage of cloud more successful. One of the things they may be doing, as a partner you might be doing or helping with, is building those bridges between the finance world and the IT world, where yes, IT spends money and they go and put in a purchase order and it goes through finance and things happen, and that might be pretty much it. But where we're moving to this OpEx world, part of that might be a conversation with finance to make sure that they're aware of this, to help them prepare for it, to help them come back and say, actually, if we change these elements of our financing, then that lowers our cost over, IT, can we make this work? Or where IT are going to be changing how they spend things, so finance needs to be able to cope with that. So instead of that periodic, very large bill, they will be seeing monthly bills, and things are changing there. Maybe that's internal reporting in terms of cross-charging internally. Maybe it's part of how it's some of the data for some of the business metrics. It's how we can start to think about, we align different parts of the business so that we're all working together to get the best that we can for our business. And by doing that, what we're actually doing is getting the very best for our customers, customers. We can use things like the CCOE, CCE, that team, to think about what do we want to measure? How do we go about enforcing good ways of working, such as having reserved instances, having spending, using things like spending plans, using spot, using those capabilities, using things like the well-architected review to make sure that our environments are well architected, one of the pillars of which is cost optimization. How do we make sure that there is the metadata that we need to drive out costs so that we're lowering our bills and getting more? Examples such as a cost-based set of metrics. Some of the specific KPIs we may be bringing in are things like percentage that are turned off when we don't need them. Because one of the very easiest ways of saving money is turning things off. So those non-production instances in an evening and at the weekends get turned off. We auto scale to have the right amount of resources at the right time so that we only run what we need. When it says instances are right sized, is it the right family, the right size, the right generation? And we could look at that by things like utilization. If we've got a instance, we've only got one instance, but it's this big and it's doing that much stuff most of the time, that's not a right sized instance. So we could look at that as a measure of utilization, or we could look at that as a measure of, how is this application performing? That right size could be about sizing, small, medium, large, extra large, etc. But it might be about, actually, we've taken a look at this application and it's currently on a general purpose work in type, and we thought that would be the right one. Turns out what it really wants is a CPU optimized environment because this application or this component of this application is bound by CPU. So if we give it a different type of family, of maybe a different size as well, it will perform better, and that might cost us less money because we need fewer resources. That can be a metric that we think about. We can think, oh, it's done it again. This is going to go absolutely up the wall. How do we do this to our business drivers? Numbers of customers, amount of revenue per customer. How is that trending? What's it costing us to get a customer? What's it costing us to make a sale? Costs of goods sold. How many employees have we got running all of this? Things like in a full-time equivalent FTE. How has that changed as our business has grown? We have got a 20% increase in sales, and we have done that without employing anybody else. Brilliant. What's the business drivers? And we can use combinations of these. You know, the number of active customers, the revenues that they have generated, and as a part of that, the right sizing of instances, because that's part of the metric around cost and thus performance. What we're doing in all of this is we are making sure we've got the right data to get to the right outcomes. Any questions at this point, other than is it Kubernetes or Kibana? Because the answer is Kibana. Any questions at this point? We just need a quick sip of water. Okie dokie. So we've got a few more bits to go, and then we are done. We are very nearly there, folks. Let's introduce the MPA tool, the Migration Portfolio Assessment tool. This tool is, in a way, very simple. It is there to help you assess a customer environment and guide you and them to what that future could look like, what it would cost, what the savings are. Simply. I'm not trying to replicate the full documentation here. I'm not trying to replicate specific things about learning about the tool. I'm trying to tell you that this tool exists and that we can use it to analyze existing environments. And then we can start to do what if? What if this? What if that? How does it change if? And that can be part of the analytics that we're doing as a part of potential cost saving. Remembering roughly right, not perfectly incorrect. In that part of that analytics could be, here is a value that we have as a, we put in, there are pre-programmed variables. As a part of those variables, we have made some reasonable assumptions based upon industry data. If that specific customer has something that's different for them, or they would like to do a what-if analysis, the tooling can help with that so that we can model potential outcomes so that they've got a higher degree of confidence in the outcome, in the target recommendation, in that what they see coming out of that tool is meaningful for them, and that they've gone through that kind of, well, we think it's this, but it could be plus minus 10%. What do those numbers look like? Well, we could model that, and we can give that to the customer and say, well, okay, at your expected number, it's £1, and at 10% either way, it's either this or it's either that. So we've got some frames of reference. We can get a proper feel. We can start to think about what and how do we migrate? What are the interrelationships? How do we migrate these across so that that's good from a customer perspective? With all of this, we can import data into the tooling, and then we're going to use that data. Now, I'm going to say something extremely obvious, and unashamedly so. Warning. If you put bad data into a system, you're going to get bad data out of a system. Garbage in, garbage out. That's a truism of the world. When we are using this tool, there are some simple mistakes to make, but it will give you the wrong outcome because we're not doing the true analysis. Maybe we've got the wrong units for things like RAM. Maybe when we're thinking about the number of servers, if the on-premise environment is virtualized, what we want are the virtual servers, not the physical servers that underlie them. If we've not got meaningful data about actual utilization and just gone, oh, it's about 70%, you're not going to get a meaningful recommendation. We can change things afterwards, but if we've not done the true analysis, that total cost analysis that looks at the actual costs to that business and what they actually need, then we're going to have less of a good time. We're not going to get the accurate results. We're not going to get meaningful, proper data around what we can recommend to a customer and what that would mean to that customer in terms of money. So that we can boil this back to where we started, where we can start to say, let's look at the cost comparison, because we have worked with that customer to get data. And we're using that data, those true costs, to do the analytics that say, what would this cost you to get the same or better outcomes on AWS compared to what you've got today? How does that break down into various areas? And we might see in a lot of cases, there are lower costs. It's kind of what you'd expect. We might see in some cases, as we can see here, there's actually slightly higher costs, where we've gone from no cost to some cost. But the total cost, and that's what we're thinking about here, that total cost comparison is still overall lower. And we've used real customer data to do this and to model this. And we can change the assumptions, we can change the variables so that we're going to say, actually, we know what this is costing on-prem, roughly, to a good enough level of accuracy. And we've got a good enough level of accuracy of what it would cost in AWS. And based upon all of this modeling, we've got a nice, simple, round number in the middle. In this case, 63%. And we can break that down even further. We can say, what does that look like from a business cash flow perspective? And this is where things like your CFO is going to get really interested. What does that mean to my business cash flow? Because there's a cost to money. If I'm having to borrow money at the moment by having more cash flow, maybe that's going to cost me less overall elsewhere, and that's got a business benefit, or vice versa. Maybe I want to think about when do I get what savings, because that's going to affect my overall business profitability on, in this case, a 3-year horizon, which is not a bad planning horizon. I can break that down and actually look at the numbers. What does this look like as cold, hard cash? Because that's where I can start to show it to my customer and say, this is your data. We have worked with you to understand how we can bring all of the elements of the cloud value framework together to analyze your current true costs, to analyze what that could cost you in AWS, to look at the differences, to look at the values from all of the cloud value framework, not just the price bit. That might be where your conversation starts. But as we've seen, staff productivity is about money. Operational resilience is about money. Business agility is about money. Or there is a money element to all of those. And that can be part of our equation, because yes, we can spend less money and we can get more for it. That is why, as I said in one of the very first slides, as a partner, I hope you are interested in using economics in your conversations with the customer, because it makes you more likely to be more successful. So more deals, more quickly, of a larger size. That is why we teach a cloud economics course. That is also why we have a cloud economics accreditation. So to start to wrap things up, the cloud economics accreditation. We have a link. Actually, I don't have the link. Wow, that's awkward. It's not given me the link. Excuse me just 2 seconds. Let me put that into chat for you. Wow, that's really badly timed. There we go. Let's try that again. It is a very, I think, simple multi-choice test. We've done various multi-choice tests so far today. That might be on purpose. It might have been to help you think about the key elements and be aware of those. You can take the test as many times as you want. So if you don't pass it the first time, maybe you'll get it the second time. No worries. And I really do encourage all of you to go and do it to earn the accreditation. It is a short, simple test. It's one I'm quietly confident you can all pass. You just need to go and do it. You could do that right now, because we're finishing a few minutes early and there's some time for you to go and do that with. You could reflect on it. You could look at some of the resources I'm going to share with you and then go and do it. Honestly, I'd do it much sooner rather than later. If you don't pass in the first couple of goes, then maybe look at some of those other resources. But I'm quietly confident that you can and will get this. So as we think about the resources that are available to you, we think about things like the next steps. What we have is some, as I say, these resources. We've got this accreditation test. That is there. The link is in the screen, on the screen. The link is in chat. It will be in the follow-up email. All of that is there ready for you to go. And then what's also going to happen is you are going to get 2 emails from AWS over the next it should be with you late this evening, but it might be very first thing tomorrow morning. But within the next 24 hours, ideally late this evening, trying not to make a promise I can't commit to, you're going to get 2 emails. One of those will come from the AWS training system, recognizing that you have been part of the course today, updating your transcript, saying thank you, and asking for your feedback. It would not be an AWS event if we did not ask for your feedback. We do it everywhere. In that email will be a link to the end of course survey. It is a very simple, short survey, 1 minute, 2 at most, a few simple questions so that you can tell us about what you thought of this course. What do you think of me as a presenter? Am I any good at doing my job? What do you think of the material? What do you think of the environment? What's the impact to your job of this? And a free text box so that you can give us any feedback that you wish to give us. Ideas of what we didn't talk about that we should have, what we spent too long talking about, why didn't you do this? I want a course on that. Rob was great, Rob was terrible. Whatever you want to say, be open, be honest, if need be brutal. If we get a class at the end of it, quite a few people have said, I didn't like this thing, we've got actionable information to improve the trainer, the course, the facilities, to do something about it. We can make a data-driven decision, but we need that data from our students so that we can better serve you, so that you can better serve our customers. It's that simple. The second email that you will get will come from me personally. That will be a link to download the slides. And that will also be a lot of other resources that I hope you will find useful. Links to things like the Cloud Economics homepage, white papers, YouTube videos, playlists, other training options, ramping guides, and anything else I can find that might be of use to you. There is a lot of resources out there to help you learn more. At times it can feel a little overwhelming. So some of the resources that I'm sharing with you are training pathways and ramp guides, pointed directions to say, if you want to learn about this thing, here's a list of stuff you could go and look at. And if you want to learn about this other thing, then here's a different list to guide you through some of it. Because there is so much out there, especially for you as a partner. There's partner-specific training. And again, I'll link to all of that so that you can get specific training because you are one of our partners and you are going out there and helping our customers. There will finally be in that email a little reminder for me about the end of course feedback survey, because it really is important to know how we can better serve you. Am I doing my job well? So that I can improve as a trainer, our courses can improve, our deliveries can improve, so that we can better serve you. It's why we ask. The data really does matter. So with all of that said, we are running a little bit earlier, but we've had very few questions today. That's okay. We just get that in some courses, and as such, we are a little bit ahead of schedule. If you have any last second questions, now is the time. This is it. But otherwise, I'm going to just wrap up and say thank you. Thank you to all of you for the investment of your time today. You know, you've come in, you've spent 2/3 of a day with me. That's a lot of time. I really do hope that coming out of this, you've got a lot more ideas about how economics isn't just the money, that the money has many different facets to it. And if we use that, we can really help our customers. As a interesting side effect of that, I really hope it will help you pass the accreditation test. I know that should probably be the other way around, but what can I say? I think of this about the customers first, always. Thank you for being here, for taking part. Please do the accreditation test. I hope one day to meet you all in person. It's been a very long time since I've met my students. Maybe one day soon. Here's hoping. Until then, folks, I hope you stay safe. I hope your families stay safe, because the world is a little bit crazy right now. Take care, everyone. Cheers.